How's it going, everybody? It's Sky here at GearRules.com, and today I'm going to be doing a general navigation video on this Suunto Core All Black watch. If you're looking to set the date or change the contrast or put it into lock mode, something like that, I've created other specific videos just for that, just so you can get the content right away. This will just be general navigation, moving from one screen to another. So hope this helps. So we're going to start out by talking a bit about the buttons and the different displays. So I'm going to refer to this main section as the main display, and soon you'll see a secondary display just right above the Suunto sign. There's actually 5 total buttons. The top left is kind of like the start or exit button, depending on what you're doing. The bottom left one is the next or back button, depending on what you're doing. The bottom right button is the down button, or can be used as a night light. And it can also be used to lock the screen, and we'll get into that a little bit later. This center button will change your main display, and it can also be used to select different things. And the top right one is up. So if you're in a certain, like the settings thing, you can go up with this and down with this and select with this. So that's kind of the button and general layout. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So you have 3 main screens. You have the time display, which is showing right now. And if you will click next, you get to your altitude screen. We'll dive into each one of these screens here a little bit later. And then next is your compass screen, which really works when the watch is flat and you can turn it around like that. So yeah, moving a little bit forward, we're going to go through the different time display screens. One thing that we should talk about is complaints online have talked about when the watch is actually on your wrist, you might accidentally bump into this main display screen if you're bending your wrist or something. And once you bump into that main display screen, it might give you the altitude or compass when you don't want it. So that's been a main complaint, but Suunto's kind of planned ahead on that. On the bottom right button, if you click and hold it, this lock button will appear right here. Like I said, the bottom right is also the night light button. So when you click and hold, you'll see it light up a little bit. So once that lock screen is on, if you hit the mode button, it'll just stay on the time setting, which is super useful, and I've found it really helpful. So because we're doing some navigation, I'm going to turn the lock off. So while you have the time as your main display, you can go through a bunch of different secondary displays. The first one was blank. The second one is the day of the week and the date. The next one is the general seconds. The next one after that is a time you can choose. Let's say you have a loved one that lives in London or Australia or some other place where you're not. You can account for that time difference, and instead of doing the mental math, you can just look at this display and say, oh, it's this time where they're located. The next one is sunrise and sunset. This is super accurate. In the settings tab, you can go and choose your location, what city, region, country you're in. And, this matches exactly what it would be if you Google it, which is super nice, especially when you're like camping and stuff. And the next one is your Odo. So if you want to use your Odo on the top left, and a key thing is you can see these 4 little bars on the inner display, very faint, but they're there. And that'll show you that this button can be used in this display. So if you hit this top left button, it'll give you a little chime, and it'll start giving you a timer. So whenever you're done, you again can refer to these 4 bars here, and you can stop it. Now notice when you stop it, the 4 bars exist over here, and the 4 bars exist over here. This is to start it up again, and this is to delete it if you press and hold it. And then it goes back to 0. So that is the Odo. I think the last display right here is the timer. You can go ahead and set it, and this is a 5-minute timer. And similarly, you can start it and stop the timer. And so that is the time display. The next display we have is the altitude display. Now, the altitude display is pretty nice because, well, first you can change the units, which is obviously useful. It'll show you the time up here as well as your altitude. So it really has 3 displays. And let's go ahead. So the general setting is blank. And if you go to this next screen on the secondary display, there's a log. So if you're planning on hiking the Grand Canyon or hiking up a mountain and back or doing a nice trail run, you can actually record the log, and you can go into your logbook once you're done, and it'll show a graph of over time, how much vertical gain and loss you had, which is a cool feature, and I've used it before. Next, you can go to this, which I think I already engaged it. It basically, like if you are hiking up a hill and you just want to see how far you're going to go from where you're at now to the top, you're like, oh, I think it's 100 meters. You could start this and it'll tell you your change in distance since you started it. And then another useful feature is the temperature, which I believe it only works if it is not on your person. If you just set it down on this just an open air for a little bit, it'll get down to the air temperature, which is super helpful. So moving on to the compass. Like I said before, the compass works mainly when you have it horizontal. And the first display is time. It also will tell you whether or not, you're north, south, east, west, southwest, if you're not familiar with looking at the 3 digits. And I believe that's it. Yep, that's it. So just time and what, your cardinal directions. So that's some of the general display. I will dive in a little bit to the settings. So if you want to go to the settings, you press and hold this button right here, and you'll see the bars go all the way around, and you'll get into your settings. Now, like I said before, this is navigate up, this is navigate down, and this is select. So if I wanted to go and change my city and my sunrise, I can just select the middle button here, and you can choose the different locations. I won't get you through all of that. And you can exit with this button. It'll take you back to your main display. So if you need to go back into settings, you're just going to have to press and hold this middle button again. And the first one is memory. So if I recorded a logbook, I would be able to go and see that graph. I haven't recorded one recently, so nothing to show you guys. And I think, so if you don't want to exit out with this button, the bottom left button, is your back button. So if I go into memory and then I select this button, it'll bring me back to the main settings page. So there's lots of things you can change. You can calibrate your alto barometer. If it's reading something that's inaccurate, like minus 200 meters, you're probably not accurate, so you can go in there. And you can do it by a reference. Another key thing is you can turn on storm alarm, which will you wouldn't want to have it on all the time, but if you're out hiking in the mountains or something, if you have this, it'll beep a bunch if you have a drop in pressure. But you can go ahead and choose city, or if you know the altitude that you're at currently, you can enter that in. and you can change your units to metric or English. So that's pretty much the watch. It's got a lot going on. And like I said, if you're looking to do something specific, I've created some other videos, and I'll drop that in the show notes below. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Please subscribe and like, and if you have any questions about this watch or other watches that maybe I've done, feel free to leave them below. And I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for watching.